All right, so this exercise is an extension of, well, first we started, we've been progressing through the course, we've been building up toward this technique,
Yeah.
correct? Through the wind breathing, the humming or the buzzing, and then the third eye initiation meditation.
Right.
And so this is kind of a culmination of those techniques in a
Yeah,
way?
I mean, a culmination to the point where you're doing a meditation, which we would count this as, directly related to building up the third eye or the ability to see,
Okay.
actually. So,
Awesome.
I mean, you'll see that, there's more to it than that, but, a lot of that becomes apparent as you do it over time, right? So, and get, more experience with the meditation itself, right? So, and that may be from just doing it more frequently in shorter periods of time, or it could be, doing it for more extended periods of time when you can. I like the combination of the two, right? So it's like I do it, through, shorter times at different times of the week, and then like when I have time, I'll go into it for a more extended period of time and do it. That'll be my practice for the day. Where I'm, engaging in a longer period sitting and doing that. So, and it just, what's the difference? I mean, it gives you more time to be in that space, and you can take a longer, when you have a longer period of time to do it, of course, you can take your time with each segment, right? And so you're going to go into it. Sometimes the other thing with a shorter time is that I can set, like we have those apps, seconds or whatever, where you can set the increments, and so you can say, oh, I'm going to do 5 minutes on each segment and then maybe 10 minutes at the end of sitting or whatever. And
Right.
so when it's longer, I just let that, I don't put on a timer, I just let it extend wherever it's going to go.
Right. And for anybody that hasn't used that app, that's a really good meditation tool and would be really well applied to this or many other
Or
techniques.
many other techniques that we
So
do.
the app is called Seconds.
Seconds.
And it's basically just an interval trainer
Yep.
app, but so it gives you like a little ding that goes off or
Right.
whatever after each interval that you determine. But one of those is like, this nice like Tibetan bell sound and
Right.
stuff like that. So it's really great for these kinds of applications.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, you can integrate anything you want with it. I mean, you can integrate sound into it or any of those things. But
Right.
as a timer, it's really nice because you can set the increments or, and you set up your own little individual program for whatever it is. And you can just label them, like third eye meditation, short version, third eye
Right.
meditation, long version, whatever, all of those things. And so it just takes one more thing off the plate of things that you have to do and
Think about while you're in
yeah.
the middle of
I mean, before that, I used to have to use like a timer on my watch, or whatever, and then set it up each time, or those types of things. So, and being sort of mechanical at that, they can always mess up too. I mean, in the beginning, I used alarm clocks, so those aren't always the most calming thing when you're when you're setting a timer, which you want to be able to bring you out of it at the end if you haven't come out of it already. But these are really nice because it's just like this very gentle tone in the background that says, okay, you're going to switch into the next phase now, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so it's good, but also having both sides where you just sort of have this free flow as well, like which I find to be slightly more natural, obviously. And so because some segments are going to be shorter than others and others are going to be longer, and I really trying to not interrupt that flow and find your own rhythm that's going to be good for you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. So take us through the
Meditation? Sure.
meditation. Yeah.
So as always, the very first thing we do is relax, because it's the first thing that we do before anything. So
Yeah.
it's like, relax. Go through, either a shorter or a longer version of that relax. And then when you get into the meditation proper, the first thing is, again, like the initiation, is to set up the wind breathing and with the focus on the throat. Now, there is a way, like I would prefer that people do the wind breathing right from the beginning, but over time you may switch it to once everything's established, you can switch it to the buzzing where the buzzing is doing it. And if you need to do that first, then by all means do that, but you'll get more play out of the wind breathing than you do out of the buzzing, at least initially. So, I think that's enough said about those two things. But so I set up the wind breathing first, and I'm doing that, and I'm focusing on the throat chakra, right? So, right, this area, as much or as small an area as you can. Now, again, there's going to be two levels of sensation there, right? If I'm focusing on it, there's the mechanical sensation of the wind moving air, the air moving in and out through that, over that territory, right? And there's a bit of a, you're hearing the sound, but you're also having some sensation of feeling there. And there's a more subtle tingling sensation or pressure or sensitivity, those types of things, that's really, extremely superficial in the beginning. And but that's what you're trying to connect to. Again, any kind of sensation like that is a sensation that's being stimulated by that etheric energy layer. So that first layer that's out. So anytime we're trying to relax and we feel a sensation, that's sort of moving around or whatever, obviously there's nothing moving around on me. That's a sensation that's coming directly from that etheric layer. So, and the same thing with this. So I feel that tingling, and that's what I'm focusing on, and letting the wind breathing sort of make that more pronounced. And then, so you'll have your timer set for however many minutes. So let's just say 5 minutes to do that. And then I bring my awareness to my third eye area, right? Wherever that is for people. Everybody's going to be slightly different there. And then again, I'm just focusing the wind breathing on that territory, right? Bringing my awareness up of that. And again, can I distinguish between, some kind of tingling sensation, or, sometimes it's a pulsing in the third eye as well. And so can I bring my attention to that, and can I connect the wind breathing to that and increase it, try to get the wind breathing to increase that sensation or your interpretation of that sensation.
Now, this may be nitpicking, but what do you mean when you say like to link the wind breathing with that sensation?
Be aware of the vibration in the throat with the wind breathing, your wind breathing. It's as if the wind breathing was a direct dial to the sensation in your third eye or the sensation in your throat, right? It's a little easier to do it when it's all localized to this territory, but now the wind breathing is here and the third eye is here. Obviously, location-wise is a little bit different, but as that sensation starts to increase, people may even be feeling it while we're talking about it, because some of their attention's already going there. And if they've already done some stimulation or something of that, they could already start to feel like there's a little pressure in the third eye, even as we're talking about it or as they're listening to us. And so, and that starts to increase. So once I bring my attention to it and, first realizing that it's there, and then secondly, bringing more attention or awareness to that territory, and then linking it or using the wind breathing to control the volume of it and bring it up as much as possible. That's what we're trying to do with the second step. Okay, so once that's achieved and your timer goes off and you're moving to the next stage, then you're going to just observe from that area of the third eye, meaning, I bring not just my awareness, but it's like I'm aware of almost looking out from that place, not trying to see the room, just observing
Your eyes are closed.
My eyes are closed through the whole thing.
Yeah.
So am I just, sometimes it seems gray to people, sometimes it's black, sometimes it's whatever, but, just notice the background that you're looking at through your closed eyelids, right? But putting your sense that it's like in this territory, right? So, and it's not like you have to strain your eyes, like you don't have to look up or, trying to roll your eyes back in your head or anything. It's literally just you're bringing your awareness to that territory and then seeing, being aware of what you're seeing, and looking for any light. And it's almost like, and it's one of those places it's really difficult to describe. So we can say looking, and because it gives us we're looking for a visual reference, right? But at the same time, looking is almost too harsh. It's almost too grasping for the, for what you're trying to, observe. And so it's almost more like it would be more subtle to say that I'm feeling the light. It's like, but in a sense, I mean, it is a visual reference, but it's not like, I'm looking harder to see the details. We don't want to do that, because then it becomes force and you're chasing that phenomena away. It's like you just want to be in that state of observing. And so a lot of times for me, it has the sense of when I'm observing but not grasping at the phenomena, it's like I'm feeling it in some ways. It's a little bit broader territory of that light. And I think it comes from that practice of synesthesia, which we talked about.
Yeah, is that like is that the same as when you're describing like trying to hear a subtle sound more clearly? So like if you're hearing some really small, subtle sound in your environment and you're trying to listen more carefully to hear it.
Right.
So in this case, is that another good crossover?
I think so. It's like you're focusing on it, but not in a way that puts pressure on it. You're not forcing the phenomena. Again, power is about relaxing, not forcing, not bringing more force to bear on it. That's other thing. Force is something that has to press through if that's the case. So I'm trying not to do that. I'm not trying to grab smoke. I'm just trying to observe it. And if I can, with my wind breathing, the wind breathing is a way to turn up the volume on that and bring it through more easily. So basically it's a way to entrain to it and bring yourself to the level of frequency where you can see it more easily, if you want to think of it that way. So I link it to, instead of just the awareness of sensitivity in the third eye, I'm bringing it now to bear on whatever I see in front of me, and I'm looking for the lightest areas. So it could be, it doesn't matter what the color is, although many times it's seen as purple, but it could be, a dark blue, it could be black, it could be gray or something in between all of those things, right? So, and it can shift. But I'm looking for the lightest areas there.
The lightest areas that
behind my eyes, right, and behind my third eye, basically. And so that's, my reference point. And so I'm using the wind breathing to link to the light areas that I'm seeing, and that frequency is helping to make that brighter. And that's the idea. It's turning up the volume on that, and I'm seeing more of that coming through. Right? And that's the place where we might see these sparks coming through or anything like that. And you can, like we've done before, we can attach to those and, use the wind breathing to make them more frequent or bring them up in brightness or anything like that. And that's okay. But we really want to go beyond that and see the brightness of the space behind that, or where it's coming from, right? So we really want to focus more on the space of that for this particular meditation, right? So the space behind that. So I'm using it to make that brighter and, bring it more into the forefront. And it's almost like as it gets lighter, my general feeling is, first people will concentrate on that, but then it's almost like you want to go beyond that as well. And it feels more like an expansiveness, like it is a space that's infinite, as opposed to something you're viewing on a two-dimensional screen. I want to sort of bridge that gap, so there's some depth to it. You're looking behind that, and as that color comes up, it seems to, not just in depth this way, right, but also like it starts to surround you. That's the whole idea. So it can come in as a, like just the color, that it's like a sense, a feeling that you get that it's, you're more in an expansive area. It has depth to it. And, but it also can be that, well, let's see how to put this. That expansiveness as it's moving around you can come in as like a haze or a fog, a mist, something like that as well. Probably not, not as specific as that, but something like that. You know, it can drift through and around you, that type of thing. So again, just sort of, you feel like it's becoming all encompassing, and that's really what you want. And so I've linked it to the background or the space that the color is coming from, and trying to, you know, build that out in my mind's eye a little more. And yeah, so when I do that, and I sort of enter that zone, so to speak, and feel that, that's great. And the more that I link to that and try to bring up the volume of that, then it starts to take on different, you'll get different sensations from that. Again, mostly about being sort of enveloped in this expanse, right? It is like being in space, but it's just in this sort of amorphous, whatever the color is, right? And bringing that up, making it more depth, more above, below, all around you. Basically, you're floating in this space.
Right.
And
so your consciousness is not just looking at a flat screen of blotchy darkness behind your eyes, but
right.
your consciousness is immersed in a three-dimensional environment within your mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then, once that happens, you may see, from expanding that idea of depth, that there's a vortex that starts to happen. So much like when we do the gazing and things start to turn, right? The same thing happens here, and there's a connection between those two things, right? So as I'm in this space and I'm using my wind breathing to bring that up and make it more dense and more, all-encompassing, let's say, then all of a sudden you'll start to feel the feeling as if you're being either pulled or falling, into a spiral, into, don't try to do it, don't try to image it or anything like that, just let it occur. When you see that swirling motion or that vortex-like action within those colors. And it may just be that, obviously it's not always going to be like a tornado sucking you up or whatever, right? It's going to be, sometimes it may just be the field of your vision seems like it's turning to some degree. And, you're not trying to do it, it's just happening, and you're sort of linking the wind breathing to that phenomena and letting it increase. And it tends to pull you into that space more. Mm-hmm. So that it becomes more all-encompassing. If it doesn't happen, there's no problem. It's just, it will happen. It's just a matter of, can you relax enough? Anytime, it starts and then it stops, you feel that funny feeling in your stomach as if you're falling or anything like that. That can be startle response, right? And so your conscious mind will bring you back. And don't be upset. Just, keep going back and going into it, because it's, it just becomes more familiar, and you'll go farther each time you do it, right? So, but it always comes back to the relaxation. Can I relax myself enough? Can I be okay with being out of control? That's kind of one of the things, because obviously, you're not, when you let it increase and that spiral increases and you're spinning and all of that, it's like, it can be a little, disconcerting. We know we're sitting and we're in, this place, but we lose track of those things. And so it becomes this, mental landscape that we're being propelled into and, or drawn into and made more real, by that fact. The vortex actually brings us deeper into that space, and so to speak, and then, makes it more all-encompassing for us. And then from that place, once that stage is done, you're basically just, bring your awareness, above your head. So, instead of the third eye, you're drawing your awareness up from that space. You're drawing your awareness up above the location where, because from that point, you're still in the third eye, right? Your awareness is still here.
So when you're doing that and you experience the spinning or the vortex that brings you even more into this internal three-dimensional environment, mm-hmm. Is that like your consciousness is moving into that third eye chakra, basically. Is
This
that what you're trying to
is this
say?
is where it all gets a
Oh,
little
okay.
wonky, right? It's like, what is actually happening? I don't know what's actually happening. It's not like we can open ourselves up and find the third eye,
But the experience of it is consistent enough that you know that it goes through these stages when you
Yep.
do it this way.
Yep.
So and yeah, okay.
And with many,
Right. Not
multitudes
just
of
a couple
people.
people.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So when you move to that last stage where you're shifting your attention above your head,
Yep. It's like the spinning has stopped
the
or
spinning,
slowed
that's
down.
what I wanted to say. The
Yeah.
spinning has stopped. Or,
Right, right. And you're just suspended in this space. And
Okay.
so instead of having that viewpoint from the third eye, just having the awareness of being in that place, you raise that to not just the top of your head, but above the top of your head. So I usually think of it as being like where I can easily reach with my hand. It comes up and it's up here somewhere. So I use my awareness to sort of put myself in that place, and you just rest in that space, whatever it is, from that point of awareness above you. You're just resting in that space, for however many, till your timer goes off or whatever, or until you feel it's done. You're done. You just have a sense that you're done. And, and it could come from anything, like you're fatigued from doing it, which can happen, right? So it doesn't last long, but you can just say, your attention's wavering, that kind of things. Things start to, thoughts and things like that start to bombard you again. It's like, okay, you don't have enough personal power to hold that at bay anymore. It's like they're starting to, infringe on your space. So, it's like, okay, that's when I start to come back. When I start having, what do they call it in finance? A diminishing return, right? The effort that I'm putting out is not adequate to what I'm getting out of it, right? So when that starts to wane, I know that's just, beating a dead horse to try to stay there. So best to come back, regroup, and try again at another time or whatever, So, correlate the information that you have. That's the best time to do it, is like right after, so it's fresh in your mind. But so you're just staying in that position of awareness here, and then when it's done, you just come back. You just sort of you don't have to reverse the process. You just become more aware of the room. Bring this down more into the head territory, right? Your awareness, and then just become aware of the room. The walls in the room, the chair under your butt, or whatever it is. The sounds, temperature, candle, however you've set it up, right? And reacclimate to the place where you are, move gently, deep breathing, all of the things that we know how to do, that most people know how to do to sort of start and end a meditation, basically. And that's it. I would, and that is sort of a building up of the capacity of the third eye to, be open and also under your control, to be able to tune it up and down, which is really what you want to be able to do. For me, it's not just the ability of being able to have the experience, it's consistency and control, so you want to be able to turn it up and down as you need to.
So it's like a workout for your third eye.
Definitely a workout for your third eye, for sure. And get you more comfortable, with different sensations and different, mental territories as well, right? So when you're starting out, when you're doing your relaxing, you're sort of at the same time you're doing your acknowledging thoughts that come in and letting them go, right? And so it all starts to weave together, so that it's not a bad thing to tell yourself what you're going in to do as well, right? And say, okay, I know I've got all these other concerns going on, but give me this time that I need to do this, and then I'll take care of my stuff afterwards. And obviously do it afterwards so that you're keeping your word. But that's the idea. So it'll help to dissipate. And so that way, if that becomes part of your normal program as you go through whatever your techniques are, whatever your practice is that day, you can say, okay, I'm going to do this now. Everything else needs to back off so that I can focus on this. And then I'll focus on that stuff. And, you start to, sort of get that rapport with yourself in order to not bother you as much. But again, the idea is that it's not going to be complete, right? So as thoughts come, you acknowledge them and let them go. Don't give them any attention, and it'll start to slow them down and be less disturbing for you as you're trying to become aware of other things.
Because those stray thoughts or repetitive thoughts or whatever, those represent probably one of the biggest impedances to being able to
Sure.
do the technique, right?
Yeah, because people say it all the time, right? I mean, it's nothing new. I mean, I can't imagine anybody has ever not heard this. Like, oh, I tried to meditate, but I couldn't shut my mind off, or I couldn't, I was thinking about, shopping list and doing the, balancing the checkbook and bringing the kids to school or soccer after school or whatever. And it just overwhelms them so much, because when they're doing things, your attention is taken off of a lot of those things. They're just sort of in the background droning, but as soon as you sit down, close your eyes and start to focus inward, they come swelling back with a vengeance. So the idea is to don't try to fight them off. It's just acknowledge them and let them go. But it is a good first step, I think. I found, and other people have found, a lot of play in, stating what you're going to do, and that, you're expecting to be left alone while you do this. And, it won't be 100%, but it'll start setting that program up for you. Yeah.
I think that's really valuable.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's, the things that we can program in, the better, because it just, has less and less time for the preliminary things, right? And like relaxing gets quicker and quicker. Total relaxation gets quicker and quicker. So we're spending less time in doing that and more time in the practice itself. So, and through the day, right? It's really good to be able to, kind of different points of the day, something happens that's out of the norm, and it can raise tension in you. But if my very first response is relax, and it doesn't take me 20 minutes to relax, and I can do it in a couple of breaths and really just, get it so it's just a command and the body responds to that. It's like it deflects a lot of those things that we know happen with stress response, right? Cortisol production, and norepinephrine, and things to, fight or flight, right? So it's like, if we can deflect those things ahead of time, or, deflect them quicker than we normally would, and let them sort of bleed out. It's like when people have something that promotes anxiety in them, and they get this, adrenaline response, right? It's the fight or flight, but after the fact, when they start to come down, it's like there's still a lot of adrenaline in their body, and they start to get the shakes, right? Because it's the adrenaline doesn't have, you're not running around the field to wear it off. I mean, that would probably be the smartest thing to do. But if you just, sit down, it's like within a few minutes, you're going to start to have these shakes that start happening, because it's adrenaline that's trying to find something to stimulate. And it's got to agitate something in order to, wear itself out, basically.
Right.
So, if we can, deflect that way sooner and just say, okay, anytime something sort of startles me or is out of the norm that would normally produce a little anxiety or whatever, it's like if my first response is relax, and I can train myself to, just on cue, relax, and it relaxes the body. It's like, you're putting in you're stimulating a different part of that feedback loop than you would be if you just let it go its natural course and ramp way up, and then have to deal with that and all of the things that come with that, right? Like shallower breathing, dilating of the pupil, all of the things that would normally go in that response if we let it take its natural course. And of course that, doesn't help us in what we have to do unless it's an emergency, obviously.
Right. But with these techniques, especially.
And so that's where a lot of exhaustion comes in by the end of the day, where you just can't drag yourself, you get through the door and all you can think about is like, practices, I just want to go to bed, or I just want to have something to eat and plop down in the chair. all of that exhaustion comes from how many times have you been in that fight or flight through the day, or have you been in that all day long?
Right.
Exhaustion comes from that. And so if you can deflect that, way earlier, it doesn't ever get to that ramping up point, you're going to have a lot more energy when you get home. And through the course of the day, you're not wasting it.
Right.
No.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things that can't be overstated too, that, when you begin to relax the body deeper and deeper, and when you start to experience the spinning or things like that, how much the natural response can be tense and panic or fear or
your eyes fly open
or
without
whatever.
You trying to do it. It's like
these things can be, I think, even though we're talking about the meditation in a very casual way, I think it's good to just say, like, it's like, don't think you suck if if you're freaking out, because it's like,
you really felt like I was spinning, and it's like there have been times when it's been like that, where I really felt I was spinning, and I thought,
how can I not be actually spinning? The world is actually spinning.
And you're reaching out and grabbing the chair, or like, you're opening your eyes and it feels like, you're horizontal instead of, vertical, and
right.
All of these weird things that happen in the mind, right?
I mean, we talk about it very casually, but it's like, but when you're actually even doing the meditation and starting to move into that, it's no joke, It's
and so we're all going to have different reactions to that, right? And
totally.
So, and it's one of the reasons that, as serious as I am about the work itself, it's like I'm not very serious for myself about those things, because I've had all those things happen and I've freaked out plenty of times. So it's like, it's acclimating it to it, right? And also I think cultivating that attitude of adventure, that it's like, I think there's a little bit of adventure in everybody, no matter how timid somebody seems. It's like there is that draw to explore, whether it's your backyard or, it's like we all had it as kids, it's like, can we rekindle that to a fever pitch again, where it was like, we're finding dragons in the backyard, or we're finding, it's like that stone could be a dragon egg, it's like, as a kid, I remember all of these things, it's like, and my kids all went through that too, it's like, did you see that moving in the bushes over there? What could it be? It's like your imagination goes, right? And there's that adventurous nature that it will serve you well to engage that here. It'll kind of get you over those points of like, maybe that's not so comfortable spinning. I mean, I, for one, don't like, I avoid amusement rides at the park like the plague, and because I don't like that physical sensation of that. But in these practices, you learn to go through that. And, because the adventure on the other side is so much more great than my resistance to going through that little bit of, discomfort. And, and again, as it gets more familiar, there is no discomfort. It's just it's a sensation that's so casual to you that you don't even think about it anymore.
Because what's on the other side.
Yeah, I would imagine it's akin to, skydiving. It's like initially, people have to feel that ridiculous sensation of falling, for 8 seconds or 10 seconds, whatever it is, before you hit that maximum velocity and it feels like you're flying. And that's the part that people love. So, they're willing to go through that 8 seconds to get to that flying part. But as it gets more and more familiar, you lose that 8 second of falling sensation. It's just sort of like you're so focused on the end result of flying that sensation of just floating in the air that it's you'll do anything to get in that place. And so it's the same thing with this. I feel like you acclimate to that part, or the adventure is so stimulating on the other side that you'll go through that to get to it. So and it just takes practice, But I think always stimulating that idea of adventure is a good thing to kind of go into it with. Like, I don't know what's going to happen this time. It's going to be interesting though, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, and I have my agenda, but
yeah,
who knows what else could happen during that time, which is great.
Cool. That's awesome. All right, so we'll record a guided meditation for this, but the other question I wanted to ask you before we finish this one up was how long, if you were going to set a timer, would you do between each segment, and can you just quickly go over those stages again?
Sure. So I'd probably do like give yourself 5 minutes in each stage, and then like maybe if it was a short version, 5 minutes on each stage, and then like a 10-minute being in that space, right?
Like
And-
above the head space when
Yep.
you get to that final.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yep. And then however long it takes you to come out of it, so probably just another few minutes at the most. But yeah, I always try to get to that, to spend the majority of, well, you can't say the majority of time if you link them all together, but basically I want to spend, the goal is to get into that space and just to keep your awareness in that space for some length of time.
Right.
That's the goal.
Right.
So, and that will help, open the third eye, acclimate it to, the different sensations and experiencing that, that visual light and all of that. And so it's basically acclimating it to those different frequencies and vibrations, so that you can interpret them as a light field, So, yeah. And so 10 minutes is plenty, So that would probably be about a 30-minute meditation altogether for a short version. In the longer version, it's just, you do whatever time it takes you to get through each stage and then try to rest in that for a certain amount of time. When you feel that you're tired or you're done or whatever, you just have a sense that you're done. There's no real specific thing there. Then you just reacclimate yourself to the room and come back and that's it.
So now are you supposed to is it supposed to be like when you come out of the meditation, like you're full-blown seeing energy?
Oh, you mean
in the
initially?
room? Yeah.
You may, but it's not something that's a requirement. I think of this as sort of this is the gym for your third eye. It's working out the third eye so that when you go through your other practices and you're more aware during the day and all of that, that's going to start to enhance that.
But it's not like power on.
I mean, it could happen, but it's not the norm. Let's put it that way.
All right. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that if that's not happening that you've done it wrong.
Right. It's more like as you continue to practice this, then when you go to do the gazing or other things, it's going to stimulate the phenomena more.
Right.
Right.
Right, exactly. Okay. It's going to acclimate and, it's basically conditioning for the third eye so that, that when you do the other practices and you're engaged during the day, it's going to be, it's going to have a better reference point.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what are the stages again?
Yep. So relaxation first, then start the wind breathing with focus on the throat chakra. Then the eyes are closed. The wind breathing happens through the whole thing, to the point of just being aware, and then there's no wind breathing there. So throat first, then awareness of the third eye area, then awareness of the light behind the third eye, and then focusing on the space beyond that, in the background space, until that sort of encompasses or whatever stage. And then as you focus on that more, you're linking the wind breathing to the light, to the background light, and making that increase. And then, at some point you may spin, or there's that vortex there. It'll start very slowly and increase, and it makes the space around you, that light space, more encompassing, right? It's all around you at that point. So it feels like your consciousness is floating in that. And then bring your awareness up to that place above your head, and you rest in that.
So the wind breathing goes through the whole thing, through the spinning, through the everything until you've moved to that final stage of moving your awareness above your head.
Right. Yep. And then you're just resting in that place.
Okay.
Then you just come back.
Okay. Now, one final thing, I think earlier on we were talking about if you get it's not necessarily part of the meditation, but it is a tip that I think we wanted to throw in there about, like, if you get stuck in a certain area or you're feeling like you're not making it to the spinning or through it or something, you were saying you could use the buzzing or the humming sound to
Like, let's say you're having trouble with the wind breathing, you could try the same technique but using the buzzing instead, because most people can buzz, you know, so it's like that humming sound or whatever, right, like
Right.
a bee, and you know, you could utilize that. And it's interesting if people can do it with the wind breathing and they've increased it, and they've, let's say they've done it for a few weeks or longer, and they've gotten pretty good at it. Try it with the humming and see how it stimulates it differently, and because it will have a little bit of a different effect. But it's definitely possible to do it with both. So it's just that I think you'll get more play out of the wind breathing initially, and but
Right.
then it could be just the humming, you know, and see how that does. But yeah, and if you feel like you're, that's yeah, if you feel like you're, you know, sort of stuck in one level or whatever, and
Right.
you know, that kind of thing, like, oh, I'm seeing the light, but it's not really progressing around, you know, and it's too hard to think about how you would link the wind breathing to that. The buzzing, because it's a little more tonal, a little more overt, right? That you could use that, you know, link the, you know, as you're buzzing, put in your mind that the buzzing is actually increasing that light to envelop you. So, and sometimes that's a little easier to kind of get through those plateaus. And the same thing with the spinning, like, you know, you're enveloped in the light, but there's no spinning happening or whatever. It's like, you know, increase the, you know, the density or that idea of spaciousness, you know, with the humming. And, then you may find that all of a sudden, you know, you start to feel like you're, you know, starting to spin a little bit, or you see, you know, like a tunnel-like type of thing that you might be falling into or being pulled up into, that kind of thing. And the humming will link to that, and you'll make it stronger. And then just go with it from there. But it's a difference between that and, you know, I can't overemphasize this enough. Don't try to make it spin faster. Don't try to conjure up, you know, sort of the vortex or whatever it is. It's more like just being aware and knowing that that's one of the goals. You know, is that, you know, that's one of my, you know, destinations that I'm trying to get to. So, and it's and then it'll come. It will. You just keep putting it out there. It'll show up, and you'll go through the experience in a good way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.